What's the best part about being in your 70s?
Let's see. I'm on Social Security.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. Being alive, taking my time. I don't have to prove anything anymore. I just get to do what I want to do and have fun doing it.
Go for it. And you can say, like, my name is blank. If that's what you want to say. You can say whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to say. Go for it.
Okay, my name's Brian Carpenter. I once played a character in a play who was an English bureaucrat. And he comes in to confront a fellow, and here's what he says. "Ah, Mr. Turing, sorry to keep you waiting. Everything's at sixes and sevens here today. My secretary's gone down with flu, and the temporary girl doesn't seem to know what she's doing. Please, sit there."
You're crazy. That's good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure what kind of background you wanted. Let me just show you
Yeah, yeah.
what I got.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, like a nice clean background. All right, so we're recording. I've got all my audio synced up here. Thanks for doing this, number one. It's just like, it makes my job
I'm
so
so
fun.
excited to see you and talk to you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
been 3 years since I had a conversation with you to actually see your face, and it's great.
Speaking of 3 years ago, I hosted like a very exclusive photo shoot with some of my viewers, and you were nice enough to sign up and be a part of this. And we walked around Silver Lake, my old neighborhood, for a couple hours, taking very artistic photos and things. But
Yes.
how did you hear about, where did your journey begin? Where did our worlds collide?
I just remember your early videos, you and Ethan in your little bathing suits in a pool, diving into a pool. Then gradually I became aware of what an excellent storyteller you are, and photographer and videographer. So it wasn't just a couple of cute boys naked
Sure.
or semi-naked. It was somebody that is talented and has things to say. So that was the beginning.
When you actually showed up at the coffee shop when we met that day, you brought your binder full
Yes,
of your
my
previous.
we called it my book. My book.
Yes.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
My model portfolio.
I know you said you were a hand model. You're an actor. You're still a working actor in Los Angeles. So,
Right.
how did your career begin in Hollywood?
Well, let's start with where I grew up, which was on the Mexican border in Texas. My house was 2 miles from Mexico, and I had the unusual advantage of growing up alongside a different ethnicity, culture, and religion that was equal to my own. My town was 90% Mexican American, so we got along well, and I didn't even realize what sort of a European upbringing it was to be exposed to another culture in that way. So that was a huge advantage. And I went away to Harvard for college. So that was another, for me, earth-shattering kind of eye-opening experience. Very different from where I'd grown up on the Mexican border. The position of the sun in the sky was different. If it was sunny and below freezing, my body didn't really understand that. I saw snow for the first time when it fell on December 2nd, 1966 in Harvard Yard. Not that I remember.
Wow.
And so that was a big deal. Then I went back to Texas, University of Texas, for law school, which I did not like after about a year and a half. I switched to a master's degree in speech communication,
Okay.
and which is basically acting with literature and plays. And then I went to New York to be an actor. I sort of bumped into being a hand model because it turned out that I had good hands, and it also turned out that if you tell people you have good hands and say, I have good this, that, and the other thing, they believe you because they don't really know what good hands are themselves. So I had something of a career as a hand model. I was also very Midwestern, so I did a lot of commercial modeling. And then I spent 10 years in New York, and I got tired of the summer body, winter body kind of thing, and wanted to see if I could be on television or film, and moved out to California in 1987, and I've been here ever since. 2010, I decided to go back to graduate school and got a degree in clinical psychology, and have been a licensed psychotherapist, a gay affirmative psychotherapist since 2015. That's when I got my license.
Wow. Yeah, you've lived many lives, it sounds like.
I might have lived a long time.
Yeah. Rewinding way back to when you were just a little closeted gay boy, did you have some dramatic coming out story? Were your parents supportive? Walk us through that chapter of your life.
Well, it was a very slow process. And, we talked a little earlier about how you wanted to know what it was like for me to be gay. And I told you that at my 35th reunion 17 years ago at Harvard, my classmates asked me to tell them what it was like to be gay. Brian, what's it like to be gay? You have 5 minutes. We'd like you to do a presentation at the reunion. You have 5 minutes, and don't be strident. What can I be strident about? So I would like to tell you that 5-minute story, which might answer some of the questions that you have. Would that be okay?
Be very okay. I'd love to hear it.
A lot of things have changed in the last 17 years. A lot of things have stayed the same. So the talk remains, I think, a valid snapshot of where I was at that particular time. So I just hope that something will resonate with you and maybe other people if they hear it as well. What I told my classmates was that during spring break of my freshman year, I went home to Brownsville, Texas, and was sitting in the kitchen while my mother made dinner. I said, "Mother, I'm going to a psychiatrist at Harvard." There was a moment of silence, and then she replied, "Would you like peas or carrots for dinner?" Later, my sister reported, "Mother said you told her you were going to a psychiatrist at Harvard and that it was all her fault." I went to the psychiatrist because I was afraid I was a homosexual, and I was right. I'm sure my mother knew that, but that she had her own psychological reasons for denial and self-blame. Among the reasons for her reaction also had to be that she was a church-going Christian. It must have been very hard for her to reconcile her love for her son with the belief held by some in her church that God himself hates homosexuals. My mother divorced my father when I was 9. He and I were never close, but on a rare visit when I was in my 30s, he asked me an uncharacteristically intimate question. "Ryan, when are you getting married?" "Never," I said. "Never," he repeated, and I shook my head. I waited for the next question, but he didn't ask, and I didn't tell. A couple of years later, just hours before he died, I gained some perspective on that conversation. I accidentally found in his desk a cache of magazines, photographic collections of naked young men. I suddenly realized that my father, married 3 times with 2 children, had been in the closet all his life. But was he gay? Well, I don't know. That question implies that there are only 2 categories into which all of us must be neatly and irrevocably divided. I prefer Kinsey's notion of a 0 to 6 scale, which has room not only for straight and gay, but for everyone in between. Our sexuality is a dynamic which allows for more options than just peas or carrots. Don't try to tell that to Hollywood, though. In one of my commercials, I played an executive who I learned on the day of the shoot had to be unequivocally straight. One of my character's tasks was just to set a suitcase down on a bed. But after a couple of takes, the director yelled, "Do it like a man. Don't do it like Dick Button." Dick Button, graduate of Harvard College and law school, whose unprecedented triple jump in the 1952 Olympics won him a second figure skating gold medal. I should be honored to do something like Dick Button. But the director used his name as an insult because Dick Button is a homosexual. I was cast as another Harvard man, admittedly not one of my heroes, in the film We Were Soldiers. I played Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, opposite Mel Gibson. During a break, Mel offhandedly told this story to some of the cast and crew. I have a friend who said she'd gone out with this guy 5 times and he never even tried to kiss her once. So I told her, well, he's probably just a fag. If Mel had used a racial or ethnic term in the story, he truly would have offended someone. But he knew that bashing homosexuals was almost always socially acceptable. Sometimes, when I'm feeling down about my life, I think of Billy Pilgrim, the main character of a novel I first read at Harvard, Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five. Billy Pilgrim maintained a sweet optimism in spite of many sad and painful experiences. I'd like to borrow Billy Pilgrim's epitaph so that when I die and I'm buried in the gay graveyard, on my homosexual tombstone, there will be inscribed these words: "Everything was beautiful and nothing hurt."
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow. Was that all from memory?
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot to digest.
Yes.
Did that make you emotional?
Yes and no. I took the approach that Kurt Vonnegut uses in that novel that I mentioned.
Mm.
Are you familiar with Slaughterhouse-Five? Do you
No.
know it at all?
No.
It's one of the major happenings is the firebombing of Dresden during World War II, but there are a number of other terrible things that happen to individuals. And each time something bad happens, the narrator says, "So it goes." So it goes.
Mm.
And you realize over the course of the novel that the more he says it, the more you want him not to say it. The more you want to say, yes, it matters, stop saying so it goes. So I took that sort of approach. I don't become emotional when I do that talk because I'd like to give my audience the room to have their own response.
Mm.
You know, oh, people believe that God hates you. You know, people, international movie stars say this slur on a professional set in front of people that they don't, you know.
Yeah.
So hopefully that, you know, it allows my audience to feel their own feelings about it.
Mm. 17
But
years.
yes, I mean, go ahead.
17 years later, it still rings true, and I don't think as much has changed as we
Right. Well,
like to believe it has.
I've become a therapist since then, so I'm more aware of sort of the broader issues. But this was just my experience.
Right.
So it's very just targeted to that. Also, we have marriage equality. So a lot of my straight friends are like, oh, so now you guys can get married, so everything's good, right?
Of course.
And yeah. And so even now, marriage equality is endangered as a result of the Roe versus Wade decision by the Supreme Court. So some things stay the same, some things change. But it's been my experience as a therapist that if you are brought up in a conservative family, or maybe religious conservative, political conservative, and you don't get recognition, you don't get seen and heard, you maybe get discriminated against by your caregivers, then it doesn't really matter what the broader social outlook is if you're having an individual hard time in your family.
Hmm.
So that, I think that hasn't changed.
How old are you now?
74.
You're 74 years old. For some
How old are
odd,
you?
I'm 31 this month. Yeah.
This month?
This month.
Are
yeah.
you 31 yet?
Not
Has your
yet.
birthday happened yet?
Not
Happy
yet.
birthday.
Yeah.
Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
When's your birthday?
May 19th.
What's that make you, a Gemini or no?
Taurus.
Taurus.
On the
Okay.
cusp of Gemini.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever consider like how blessed you are for having your health and your mind, and you just have such
So far, yes.
clarity and
Absolutely.
conviction still? You know, I mean,
Right.
yeah, it's not taken for granted. You know, and it's like,
No, not at all. Not at all. And the women in my family live to be very old.
hmm. So is that a good sign?
I don't know. Could be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're aging gracefully, and
Thank you.
yeah. Well, thank you.
So
for
are you.
I'm trying over here. You know, just that.
You're
Luckily,
in the prime of your life.
yeah. I feel like I've entered finally the period where I'm not completely clueless. I'm still pretty fucking clueless. But
That's great. I'm glad you are.
yeah, I think in your,
Because, you know, curiosity is good.
yes,
Not
I have.
knowing is good.
I have loads of curiosity, loads
That's
of it,
nice.
an excess of curiosity. I love people, even though I'm mostly introverted. I have social anxiety disorder, but I have so much curiosity for people, and I try not to let, you know, some of my mental fuck you, Mark, get in the way of my passions.
Good. We all have negative voices.
Yeah.
You know, they don't go away, but if you don't allow them to affect you in significant ways, then you're ahead of the game.
So many people are dealing with some sort of like mental struggle, depression, what have you. Anxiety, yeah. If you could have, you know, if you could speak to the youth or anybody who's struggling, what would you say to them in terms of picking yourself up and like trying to push on?
Wow, it's just, you know, it's just such an individual thing. Maybe this will be helpful. There are a couple of things that keep coming up across various clients of various sexual orientations and histories. One is the desire to change versus reluctance to change. I mean, I was thinking about this, every single client who's ever come to me has wanted to change something about their lives, right?
Right.
Or they wouldn't be in therapy. Another theme is getting in touch with your emotions, because we don't want to feel emotions that we feel that we believe are negative, like anger or disappointment or grief, any number of things. And we all have a whole range of emotions that come with being human. I don't know if you're familiar with a woman named Brene Brown. She's a psychological researcher out of the University of Houston. And she did a video on a TED Talk on vulnerability some years ago, I think about 12 years ago at least, where she talks about how you can't just decide to suppress one emotion. Like, I never get angry. Angry is not for me. You know, you can't just decide not to be angry without suppressing all the emotions. And say you are angry. Say you're angry with one of your parents, a mother or father, and sometimes it's very difficult to get in touch with that because you love your mother and father. But then if you're in touch with the fact that you're angry, how do you express that anger or that emotion in a constructive way? So it's not just getting in touch with how angry you are. What can you do that might help you or might help the situation?
How do you find yourself expressing yourself in constructive ways?
Well, if you say you're angry with your father for how he is,
right?
Can you arrange to talk to him? Could you have a conversation? Would that be good?
Right.
Oh, you tried that. Well, what else would be good? Well, it doesn't think my father's never going to be able to talk. to me. Well, sometimes people that you want to communicate with are not available. They either physically not available, they might be dead, they might be live in another place, or often emotionally unavailable. They just don't know how to communicate in ways or about subjects that you want to talk about. And so what do you do with that? And then your guess is as good as mine, what you want to do with the anger. If you're an artist, you might want to paint something. If you're an actor, you might want to get a monologue that allows you to rage and scream, or you might, I don't know, any number of ways that you can deal with it. But understanding that you've done everything that you can to be constructive and rebuild a relationship with someone, and it's hard to recognize that maybe that's not going to happen.
Are you single? Are you dating? What is your personal life like? And
I'm single, but I have a rich internet life.
Would you care to expand on that?
Well, I just, people from all over the world get in touch with me. So I have virtual boyfriends in, Asia and South America and, blah, blah, blah.
Like emotional relationships?
It depends on who it is, yeah. But some people live in countries where it's illegal to be gay, so they tend to have tend to be more interested in conversations and just being able to say things about how they feel about being gay, as opposed to other people that are more, comfortable, that tend to be more sexually interested.
Interesting.
There's only so much you can do online anyway. I mean,
right.
Like I said, it's all virtual.
Did you see yourself being, I don't know, living alone and pursuing life
so
for yourself?
Yes. I mean, people have said, well, you're single? Oh, but you're so nice. I don't understand why you don't have a boyfriend. Well, it all goes back to, my upbringing. I didn't have any examples of positive relationships. And I had lots of examples of negative relationships. And I wasn't allowed to love the people that I wanted to love. So I just got used to being by myself. And that's fine. Being single is fine. There's a social prejudice towards being hooked up, that somehow you are not a whole person if you don't have a partner. And that's just socialization.
Yeah, Brian, you're not complete when you're by yourself. What are you doing? You need to find someone.
Right. Well, I have, and it's me.
Share with us, what's something that you like about yourself?
I don't know, a bunch of stuff. I do what I want. I've lived my life just pursuing what pleased me and living in alternate realities as an actor and as a video game player. And, I got to go to this fabulous institution for college and get to know amazing people, and went to law school. I've just been very privileged in my life. I just think life is wonderful, and there's so many beautiful things, and and it's just, there's so much to see and do.
What else did you want to talk about today?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about? I want to talk about you. I want to find out about you.
I'm boring.
No, you're not.
I have nothing going on.
No, you're not. Are you planning to stay in Indiana for the foreseeable future, or are you going to come back to LA where you really belong?
Wow, isn't that such a loaded question? That's also, all of my friends in LA ask the same shit, It's just didn't feel the pressure with the question. But no, I love my time in LA. Ever since I've left, I've reflected on it, and I realized that the 4 years I spent there were probably the highlight of my life so far. I loved being there. It had a few negative points to it, but so does every city. No city's perfect. So
True.
I love living there. There's a great probability that I will be living there again in the future, or at least somewhere in California, whether it be San Diego or Northern California. I'm a West Coast boy. I love the ocean. I love the mountains. and I love the sun. And I find myself
And you were
being
very good at finding those funky Airbnbs.
That's
Oh my
well,
God.
yeah, that was part of it too. Finding different
Yeah.
set locations where we could use as a literal
Yeah.
background in a set.
And to
So
just be there as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Right.
Relax, yes.
I felt like I got to know California better because of you.
Oh,
Even though I lived here since 1987,
yeah.
you showed me aspects of the beauty of the place
Mm.
that I sort of knew was there, but you just made it right in front of me. And then the way you found new things that I didn't know about and enjoyed them in ways that I could live vicariously through.
I appreciate
through
that. Is there going to be a point where you're just like, all right, I'm officially retiring. I'm done with all this bullshit, and I'm going to go live in a yurt in Northern California?
Maybe. I only do my therapy virtually.
Right.
And I like being in LA because I can get cast in TV and film. And I look forward to the day when we can do live theater again because COVID, we haven't been able to do that. So possibly,
Yeah.
but I don't intend to retire. I've sort of been retired all my life. I never really had a 9-to-5 job for at least not for very long.
Right.
So I'm still doing acting. I'm still doing therapy. The reason I chose therapy as a profession is because I can do it when I'm 100. If I can, if I still have my marbles, it's not very time consuming or strenuous. I can have as many clients as I want to have.
Wow.
So that's an advantage.
You've like set up your life in such a way that like serves you so well.
Yeah.
You have to be proud
true.
of that,
I am. Thank you.
You seem very happy. Like the optimism.
I am happy, and I'm just so delighted to have a conversation with you because I've admired you for so long. I think you're wonderful.
Well, thank you. I don't know what you see in me, but I appreciate it. Yeah. That's
All of the stuff that you've accomplished with your life. You've gotten out there. You've taken risks. You've gone places. You had a relationship that was such an example to other people.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because through the last couple of years, that's kind of what I've tried to maintain a positive memory of that. I don't want to just be like, okay, let's erase 7 years of my memory, 7 years of making videos. So coming out on the other side, as I say now, I've found like a very peaceful, healthy spot with my life. I look back at those years and I'm like, wow, that is pretty fucking cool. I'm proud of that.
Mark, well, I of course I don't know what it was like to be in the relationship, and I only saw what you and Ethan published on YouTube.
Right.
But it was a remarkable relationship from a consumer's point of view, from an observer's point of view. It was so positive and so loving and so adventuresome at the same time. I think it was the main reason that kept pushing you in addition to your skills. You had those skills, but emotionally, I was like, oh, Mark and Ethan, and this is such a wonderful relationship, and I love these boys, and I love what they do. And so the product that you publish, what we saw as the public, was so wonderful and so inspiring. There's not many. I told you, I as I was growing up, I saw the ruins of any number of relationships, and to see your relationship with Ethan, granted, it's okay, it was finite, but while it lasted, it was wonderful. And that was a great gift that you and Ethan gave to the gay community and to the world at large. And I hope that you appreciate that.
Yeah, that was very heavy, everything you just said to me. So excuse me while I take just a moment, but I do appreciate it. I think it will take some time for everything to like set in, Your 20s, I'm sure you remember, they just go by. They're so chaotic. They don't really seem real. And then your life kind of gradually slows down to a pace where you can look back and be like, fuck, that was so cool and so wild. Like, I can't believe how adventurous and just free I could have been. It's just, yeah, it's a wild.
And how beautiful
wild.
how beautiful you guys are.
Thank you. Well, I didn't expect you to gas me up so much during our interview, but yeah, it's cool.
To gas you up?
Yeah. I don't really talk about my past relationship very much with people. When I bring it up on YouTube, I just sort of like keep it in the future. I try to be, relatively graceful about it. And at the end of the day, the relationship was between us.
Absolutely.
So I've just tried to maintain a level of like privacy still.
Right. Absolutely.
So.
Well, like I said, everything I told you was based on what you published.
Yeah.
So I wasn't reading into the relationship that was private. I wasn't asking questions. I wasn't telling you how to live your life.
For sure.
I was just saying what you presented was such a gift to me and to the gay community and to the world. It was a beautiful thing. So I hope that you can let that in on some level.
Yeah, definitely can. I mean, I think I'm coming to a point too where I'm like, in a couple of years, if I do find someone who's willing to be on the internet, I wouldn't be like, against having another public relationship because of what you just said. Like, I think one of my purposes and my gifts to be here is to just try to, live unapologetically. And my privilege as a masculine white dude who happens to be gay is the fact that I can kind of walk through life and I get to see like the best sides of people, and I want the positivity to kind of radiate through the screen. I never had this big traumatic event in my life, a passing of someone, a relationship that ends suddenly. I didn't really have anything in my life that I had to really deep dive and look at myself. And so that's kind of what this last couple of years was. It's not only grieving a relationship, but it's also grieving a part of me that I'm trying to shed and let go of.
I'm not without relationships. I have very good, very long-lasting, very strong relationships that just don't happen to be sexual partners. They don't happen to be live-in lovers. Right. So it's not like, oh, well, the option is to have a partner or just be alone. That's not the option. I have lots of friends and several very good friends.
I love that you mentioned that, and it also kind of ties into the Kinsey scale of not having just peas and carrots, but you have all the stuff in the middle, the gray area of where you can live your life. And to be honest, that's where a lot of us live our lives. We're not always here on the extreme ends.
When I have bisexual clients, I ask them, well, so on a scale, what would you say you are? 90% attracted to men and 10% women, or 30-70, or and so they're like, oh, let me think about that,
right.
And some of them might know right away, but it's a consideration that people talk, oh, well, you're bisexual, and they assume that they know what bisexual is, or oh, you're queer, or I'm queer, and that you assume that other people know what that is. And if somebody says, I love that person, I always say, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by love? Because we make assumptions about these words that are commonly used, and we may have very different ideas about what they mean.
Right. Labels are so soothing to people.
Yes. Binary, either or, is so much better than complex.
Right.
Please don't make me have to think in complex ways, because it's either yes or no, black or white. Straight or gay, which one are you?
Yeah. Fit into something so my brain can calculate it.
Right. And categorize you.
Yeah. My dad recently, we had a heart-to-heart, and he was saying to me, the world hardens us, but we still have that boyish spirit inside of us, you know?
Right.
And
Right.
excuse me, and I can see it in your smile. You just have like this little, I don't know, it's like this, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like cantankerous. It's like this little, maybe that's not the right word. It's like this little like boyish like look in your face. And it's like, how are you managed to keep that alive? Like, what do you do? What's your secret, Brian?
I don't know. I think you have it too. This spark and this enthusiasm and this drive to see and do and accomplish and affect people and bring people in, and I want to be seen and heard, and I love to to move people. So I don't know. My mother was very outgoing. That was one of the real positives about her. She ran a record shop when I was in junior high and high school, and my friends would always say, "Oh, your mother's so nice. She has such a great smile." And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay." But they were right. I mean, so yeah. I think part of it is genetic. Part of it is my disposition. I mean, some people in my family really are like drinkers, and I never was much of a drinker myself. So I think part of it, we do genetically inherit traits and characteristics that we get from our parents.
When you're stressed out or you've had a long day of playing a guy who has a beard down to his belly, what is something that you do to just find center and chill out and just calm your mind?
Well, do something like that. Read. Reading is another way to experience an alternate reality that is not very strenuous. Play a video game.
Yeah, let's get into that really quick, because you did mention that when we were 3 years ago, and you're into RPGs, you're into like Assassin's Creed and things.
Yes.
When did you discover that you had such an interest in video games?
Well, I've liked computer games from the time before consoles, and then some years ago, one of my good friends introduced me to one of the consoles, and it was bigger and brighter, and now I have this huge 65-inch OLED TV.
Yes.
And so I mean, it's just gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
So I love it, and I love solving problems, and I love living alternate realities, so that satisfies those itches.
Well, I think I've gotten everything I wanted to get out of you for this chat today. You have this mischievous. That's the fucking word I was looking for earlier. It's not cantankerous. It's mischievous.
Good. Thank you for being curious about my life.
Of course.
And letting me talk all about myself.
Well, we did a bit of both,
We did.
Yeah, I think it's kind of
and
nice.
I was glad to have the opportunity to support you and tell you what an effect you had on me.
Yeah. I was trying to maintain my composure because I'm also on camera here, and it's it does mean a lot. It meant more, I think, below the surface than what you saw.
So how long do you think this segment is going to be when you edit it all down? Like 3 minutes or?
Yeah, it's late night TV, right? We just cut everything down.
Right, flashes.
I have no fucking idea. It looks like I have about 80 minutes total of footage.
Oh my God.
I'll probably cut it down to like anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. It really just depends. I didn't say
anything incriminating. That's the only thing.
As the producer, director, and editor here, I'll send you a cut when I'm done. And you can kind of, go through it if you want and make changes to it. And that's how we roll. All right, well, I'll talk to you soon. Have a good evening.
You too.
See you, Brian.
Bye.